Chosen one. If you've always been rejected, it's because you're a breaker. You've always felt it, haven't you? That strange weight in your chest when you walk into a room and feel like you don't belong. People smile, but their eyes don't land on you the same way. You try to speak, but something unspoken always lingers in the air. There's this invisible wall between you and the crowd. You've felt rejected by friends, misunderstood by family, perhaps even alienated from the very communities that should have embraced you. And, if you're honest, sometimes you've wondered, what's wrong with me? But I want to offer you something today that could change everything. What if the rejection you've always felt isn't a sign of your failure, but the signature of your destiny? What if you were never meant to fit in because you were born to stand out, not in ego, but in spirit? I want to tell you something I've learned through thousands of hours of silence, meditation, and listening, not to the world, but to the deep voice within me. You are not broken, you are a breaker. And that changes everything. A breaker isn't someone who destroys for the sake of destruction. A breaker is someone who is called to dismantle systems, beliefs, patterns, and illusions that no longer serve humanity. But here's the paradox. In order to break illusions, you must first live in them. You must first feel their weight. You must first be rejected by the very systems you're destined to transform. That rejection, it's your initiation.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Think back, from school days to family dinners, from relationships to careers, you've always felt like you were swimming upstream. People say, why can't you just be normal? But what they don't understand is that normalcy was never the path for you. You were born with a different frequency. You were born into a world that runs on programming, and you were never designed to run on autopilot. You notice things others don't, you feel things deeper, you question what others accept as truth. And that's not a weakness, it's your power, but it's also why they reject you. Let's go deeper. Because I know you're not here for surface-level motivation. You want truth, you want meaning, and you want to understand why your life has unfolded the way it has. So let me ask you a question that may shake you. Who would you be if you stopped trying to be accepted and started living as if you were chosen? Not chosen as in superior, but chosen to awaken. Chosen to carry a light into dark places, chosen to speak when the world is silent, chosen to feel when others numb out. You see, the pain of rejection is not something to run from, it's a sacred teacher. It forges the breaker's path. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If I'm chosen, why does it hurt so much? Because spiritual emergence is not comfortable. It is not glamorous. It is a stripping away of illusions, layer by layer, until all that remains is truth. And truth often comes wrapped in pain. Rejection is the fire that burns away the need to be liked. It incinerates the part of you that still thinks validation equals value. And in that fire, something miraculous happens. Your spirit begins to speak, not the voice of the ego, but the voice of the eternal you, the one who remembers why you came here. And maybe, just maybe this is the first time, someone is telling you that your difference is divine, that the very things that make you an outsider to some are the exact things that make you a guide for others. You were never meant to follow the crowd. You were meant to see ahead of them. And that vision, that intuition, it's not random. It's a spiritual technology embedded deep inside you. But to access it, You must stop seeing rejection as punishment. It is preparation. We live in a world that worships belonging, yet forgets that all great change comes from outsiders. Jesus was rejected. Buddha was cast aside. Prophets, mystics, scientists, artists, they were all breakers. They all lived on the edge of society because that edge is where the new world begins. And you, if you've always been rejected, are being called to that edge, that threshold between what has been and what's possible. And guess what? It's lonely there. But you're not alone. We are many, silent, scattered, often hidden, but we are waking up. So here's a deeper question for you. Are you willing to stop trying to fix what was never broken? Because the moment you do, you unlock your real journey. The rejection becomes revelation, the pain becomes purpose, and you begin to see that your life was never off track. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every loss, it was all part of a divine curriculum. Your soul signed up for this. You came here with work to do, not ordinary work, but soul work. And the path of the soul is not linear, it spirals. It descends before it ascends. It breaks you before it makes you. But let me be clear, being a breaker doesn't mean you're better. It means you're burdened. You carry a frequency that others don't understand yet. That's why they reject it. That's why they reject you. But what if their rejection is your redirection? What if every door that closed was protecting your energy from being diluted? What if every person who left was making space for real connections, ones rooted in soul resonance, not surface-level compatibility? I want you to sit with that, not just as an idea, but as a knowing. Close your eyes and breathe into it. Imagine that every time someone turned their back on you, the universe was turning you toward yourself. Every time you were ghosted, ignored, overlooked. It wasn't because you lacked value, but because your value couldn't be seen by those still trapped in illusion. You don't need to shine brighter for them. You need to go deeper into your own light. And that brings us to the real question: what are you here to break? Is it generational cycles of trauma? Is it collective lies about worth and identity? Is it the illusion that we are separate from one another, from nature, from the divine? Whatever it is, your life has been guiding you toward it all along, and the rejection has been the compass, pointing you to the places where healing is needed. First in you, then through you, into the world. You are not a mistake, you are not too much, you are not too sensitive, you are tuned in. You are awake in a world that is still dreaming, and that is a sacred calling. But it comes at a cost. The cost is comfort, the cost is fitting in, the cost is being misunderstood, but the reward is truth. The reward is alignment. The reward is walking through life with the knowing that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what your soul came here to do. And if you're still with me, if your heart is beating a little faster and your mind is stirring with recognition, then you already know you're a breaker. And your time is now. You were born to break the pattern, not to be loved by it. Maybe no one ever told you this, but your soul didn't come here to be liked. It didn't incarnate for applause, validation, or to blend seamlessly into the world's expectations. It came here with the fire of 1,000 ancestors, the wisdom of lives you don't consciously remember, and the mission to break the very patterns that seek to control, oppress, numb, and repeat. That's why you've always felt out of place. That's why you've been drawn to the edge of things, relationships, belief systems, even your own identity. Because deep down you know The center of the old world is collapsing, and the edge is where the new world begins. You've probably tried to play the role before. You know the one, the normal one, the agreeable one, the one who makes themselves smaller to avoid confrontation or quieter to avoid judgment. Maybe you spent years sacrificing your truth just to feel a moment of belonging. But let me ask you something that might sting. Did it ever work? Did you ever truly feel at home in those spaces, or did pretending just deepen the ache of disconnection? That ache wasn't failure, it was feedback. Your soul was trying to remind you you weren't made to fit in, you were made to awaken. An awakening is not some fluffy, Instagram-worthy process. It's disruptive. It's the earthquake that shatters the illusion. It's messy, it's lonely, it's crying at 2 a.m. while your old life crumbles and you have no idea what's coming next. But it's also holy, because in that wreckage, the breaker emerges, raw, ready. You were born to break the pattern, the one that says stay small, the one that whispers, don't speak up, don't stand out, don't make people uncomfortable, the one that taught your parents to silence their truth, that taught their parents to survive instead of thrive, that taught generations to settle instead of soar. You see, these patterns aren't just habits. They're energetic blueprints passed down through time, and when one of us wakes up and chooses differently, the whole lineage feels it. You may not realize it, but by choosing to break the cycle, you're liberating not just yourself, but everyone who came before you and everyone who will come after. But breaking patterns doesn't look glamorous. Often it looks like being misunderstood by the very people you love most. It looks like walking away from a job that pays well but poisons your spirit. It looks like saying no when your whole nervous system is conditioned to say yes to please others. It's terrifying. But it's also the beginning of freedom. There's a voice in you. It's quiet, but it's ancient. It says something isn't right. It says there's more to this life than what I've been told. It says I can't keep living this way. That voice isn't your mind, it's your soul. And the more you listen to it, the more the old world starts to fall away. That's why people turn away from you. That's why the invitations stop. That's why the energy shifts in the room when you walk in. Because your presence disrupts the trance, and not everyone is ready to wake up. But you didn't come here to be accepted by the dreamers. You came to be the one who says wake up. And that's why you've been through what you've been through. Not because life is cruel, but because your soul needed the contrast. It needed to feel the cage to recognize its own wings. Rejection taught you who you're not, so you could remember who you are. You are not here to belong to the pattern. You are here to break it, with your choices, your voice, your energy. And yes, that means you will lose people, but listen closely, you will find yourself. And when you do, the loneliness turns into solitude, the pain becomes presence, the fear becomes fuel, and suddenly you're not just surviving the rejection, you're honoring it, because it carved the path to your truth. So I ask you, and I mean this from the depths of knowing, what are you still clinging to that was only ever meant to be your cocoon? Because the time of hiding is over. The time of shrinking is done. The world doesn't need more followers of broken systems. It needs breakers. It needs you. The sacred loneliness of the breaker is the doorway to awakening. There comes a point in every breaker's journey where the silence becomes deafening. You look around and realize there's no one beside you. The friends you used to laugh with don't call anymore. The family you used to rely on doesn't understand who you're becoming. The places that once felt like home now feel hollow, and in that hollow space you find yourself face to face with the one experience every awakened soul must pass through: sacred loneliness. This loneliness isn't the same as being alone. It's deeper. It's not just the absence of people, it's the absence of resonance. It's standing in a room full of noise and feeling like no one can hear your frequency. It's the ache of knowing you've outgrown the life that once fit you like a glove, and yet the new life hasn't fully formed. You're between worlds, no longer asleep, but not yet no longer pretending, but not yet embraced for your truth. And this space, the in-between, is where most people turn back, because it's uncomfortable, it's disorienting, it strips you bare. But what if this sacred loneliness isn't a punishment, but a portal? What if it's not meant to break you down, but to break you open? You see, when the noise of the world fades, you begin to hear something else, your soul. And it doesn't speak in words, it speaks in knowing. It whispers through your intuition, your dreams, your gut feelings. It shows you visions, flashes of potential futures, moments of clarity that pierce through the fog. But to hear it, you must be willing to be still. You must be willing to sit in the sacred discomfort of not knowing, not being seen, not being celebrated. This is the part of the path no one glamorizes. It won't get you likes or followers. It won't land you in the spotlight, but it's the part that matters most. Because if you can walk through the wilderness of sacred loneliness without trying to numb it, escape it, or fill it with distractions, you will emerge with something unshakable: self-communion. And once you have that, no rejection can destroy you, no criticism can unravel you, because you're rooted in something deeper than approval. You're rooted in truth. So ask yourself, when was the last time you truly sat with yourself without the need to change, fix, or explain who you are? Can you be with your own presence the way you wish others would be? With reverence, with softness, with curiosity, because the truth is, the world mirrors back how we treat ourselves. If you abandon yourself in your loneliness, the world will echo that abandonment. But if you honor your solitude, if you claim your aloneness as sacred, the world will begin to shift around you. Resonance will find you, not immediately, not all at once, but it will. You see, sacred loneliness isn't forever. It's a rite of passage. It's the soul's night before dawn, and you must walk through it to remember who you are beyond the noise, beyond the masks, beyond the roles you've been asked to play. And here's the paradox: the more you embrace your aloneness, the less alone you become, because on the other side of sacred loneliness is sacred connection, not the surface level kind, but the soul kind, the kind that doesn't require explanation, the kind that meets you where you are and says, "I see you, I've been walking too." But to get there, you must stop chasing the old world's definition of belonging. You must stop begging for scraps of attention from people who were never meant to understand your mission. You must stop explaining your fire to those who fear their own light. You must go inward. And that's terrifying, because everything in our culture teaches us to run outward, to seek comfort in consumption, to numb the ache with distraction. But the breaker knows real transformation never comes from the outside, it comes from within. So here's a deeper invitation. Can you sit with your sacred loneliness and ask it what it came to teach you? Not to fix it, not to escape it, but to listen, to learn, to become. Because that loneliness is not the end of your path, it's the beginning of your awakening. And when you stop resisting it, when you stop making it wrong, it becomes your greatest ally. It sharpens your vision, it clarifies your values, it purifies your energy. It teaches you how to stand alone, not in bitterness, but in power. And when the world sees someone who can stand alone in truth, who can walk through the fire of solitude and come out with light in their eyes, that's when the world begins to follow, not because you asked them to, but because you became what they forgot they could be, whole. And wholeness is magnetic. You're not alone in your loneliness, you're just ahead. And that aheadness doesn't make you better, it makes you responsible. It means you're carving a path others will one day walk. So keep going, keep trusting, keep listening, because the sacred loneliness you feel now, it's the silence before the symphony. They rejected you because you were sent to rebuild what they couldn't understand. It's time for you to hear this. They didn't reject you because you were wrong. They rejected you because you were different. Not different in a shallow, quirky kind of way, but different in a way that threatened the very structure of their reality. You brought questions into rooms that had settled for answers. You carried energy that exposed their numbness. You walked with vision in places where people had long stopped looking forward, and because they didn't understand your frequency, they feared it. Because they couldn't categorize your soul, they dismissed it. But you weren't sent here to be understood. You were sent here to rebuild. There's something deeply sacred about being the one who sees what others refuse to see. It's also a heavy mantle, because when you're the one who sees, you're also the one who feels. You feel the cracks in the systems. You feel the lies in the language. You feel the distortion in the way people relate to themselves, to each other, to the earth. And you can't unfeel it. You can't unknow the truth once it reveals itself to your spirit. That's why you've always felt a little out of sync with the world around you. You were tuned to the frequency of the next world. You were never meant to preserve the old. That's why it rejected you. You were meant to witness its collapse and carry the blueprint for what comes after. You're part of a generation of souls who came here to be architects of awakening. And here's the wild truth. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need a committee to approve your calling. The divine already stamped your soul with purpose the moment you took your first breath, and every rejection you've experienced since then has only been a clearing, removing the people, places, and patterns that could not go where you are destined to build. But building something new takes courage, because before you can build, you must let die. You must let die the version of yourself that begged for acceptance. Let die the version of yourself that performed for love. Let die the version of yourself that tried to dim your light so others wouldn't feel blind. That version was survival. But now, you're being invited into creation, into leadership, into embodiment. The world doesn't need more copies of copies. It needs originals. It needs breakers turned builders. And that's where you are now, standing at the edge of what was, facing the unknown of what could be. So how do you rebuild something the world has forgotten? You begin with yourself. You become the sanctuary you wish you had found. You become the voice you long to hear. You become the presence that reminds others of their own divinity, not through preaching, but through being. You walk with integrity, you speak with clarity, you love without attachment, and in doing so you become a living example of a new paradigm, one rooted not in fear, but in freedom. Rebuilding doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like choosing rest in a culture addicted to hustle. Sometimes it looks like setting boundaries in a family that worships self-sacrifice. Sometimes it looks like trusting your intuition over external advice. These small radical acts, they add up, they ripple, they rewire the collective. Because energy is contagious, and when you embody a new way of being, you invite others to do the same. And yes, it's hard, it's exhausting, it's isolating, but you didn't come here because it was easy. You came here because it was necessary. Your soul chose this mission. It chose this body, this timeline, this planet, not because you were being punished, but because you were trusted. You were trusted to hold light in the dark. You were trusted to endure the rejection, not as a wound, but as a weapon of clarity. Every time someone said, "You don't belong," the universe was whispering, "Correct, you belong beyond." So now the question becomes, what are you ready to build? Not just externally, but internally. What beliefs are you ready to root into your being? What truth are you ready to live without apology? What legacy are you ready to leave behind? Not for fame, but for evolution. Because this moment in history is not random, it's a sacred intersection. The old world is cracking, the veils are thinning, the systems are shaking, and in the rubble the soul architects rise. You are one of them. You feel it when you close your eyes. You've known it since you were a child, and even though life tried to bury that truth beneath layers of shame, fear, and rejection, it never died. It's still there, glowing, waiting. Call. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You have not missed your moment. You are the moment. You have been prepared by every detour, every heartbreak, every silence. They shaped you, they seasoned you, and now it's time to step forward, not as someone who needs to be chosen, but as someone who chooses themselves. Again and again. And when they still don't understand you, and they won't, not all of them, you'll remember you weren't sent to be understood. You were sent to remind the world of what it forgot, to remind the hearts of what they buried, to remind the soul of what it means to be free. So go, build, speak, live, and know this: your rejection was never your flaw, it was your flame. And now it's time to light the way.